All right, part two. I did put part one, the offense through 12 games, the mini bye this morning. This one I'm going to focus just on the defensive line, not the entire defense. And I thought about doing a video that incorporated both the head coaching discussion and the defense in this video, but I'm not going to. I'm going to make a completely different video for the head coaching talk. What I am going to focus on for just a minute is how outdated this Tampa 2, how outdated this zone coverage scheme that Matt Eberflus has been running is. Now, I'm all with you guys. I have been all on board. Will make me a little bit bigger. All on board with a lot of this talk because the fact is we have been a top 10 defense. We've been a very solid defense. The unfact is most of that's on the players. These players have made this defense better than it is. The Tampa 2 is outdated. How it works with the Tampa 2, guys, is you run a scheme and a system that doesn't put as much pressure and blitzing on the front of the defensive line, which we don't have a strength of anyways. Our defensive line isn't the best, but some of that blitzing would be good. Jack Sanborn, really good blitzer. TJ Edwards, really good blitzer. Kyler Gordon, really good blitzer, but we don't blitz enough. I made a huge emphasis of this in the Packers game. One of the keys to the game was to blitz Jordan Love. He absolutely sucks when you blitz him. He's one of the worst in the league. 36 to 45% of the time he's blitzed. And what did the Bears do? They went out and sucked an egg and blitzed him 15% of the time. When it's his clear weakness, we blitzed him 15% of the time. Terrible. Terrible. The Tampa 2 is designed to capitalize off other teams' mistakes. So you sit in zone, you watch for mistakes, you capitalize, you tip balls, you gang tackle. That's what you do in a Tampa 2. It's outdated. It doesn't work. One of the biggest reasons I'm an advocate, and I'm just going to say this, and we'll do a head coaching video later. Whoa, where'd I go? Those are kind of the three primary candidates right now. Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, and Thomas Brown. Everyone's asking me, what's your opinion on these three? Number one, Ben Johnson, love his play calling, love his scheming. The Detroit Lions are clearly successful. He doesn't have head coaching experience. That's my biggest hesitation. We've tried that experiment over and over and over again, giving head coaches their first reps, their first opportunities. I've even said with Matt Eberflus, he needs to learn from these experiences. He needs to learn from these experiences. He needs to learn from these experiences. I can keep going, but it's a broken record. It's the same thing over and over again. Ben Johnson, proven play caller, very good on offense. How would he be as a head coach? I don't know yet. Thomas Brown, that was my biggest concern about him bumping up and being the head coach of the Bears, even in an interim level, is will it take away from Caleb Williams and his development? He's obviously done very well the last 3 weeks with Caleb Williams. Still some yellow flags that I'm pointing out. A lot of people don't want to hear because they're all in on Thomas Brown. We're still starting games really, really slow. Really slow. This last game against the Lions could have been a completely different outcome if we would have started this game completely different. Mike Vrabel, to me, the name that keeps popping up and is coming to the forefront now, his teams have always overperformed with him. Now, he hasn't had the best situations, but they've overperformed. Very raving reviews on him, and he runs more of a man-style defense, more man-to-man. Now, I understand with Tyreek Stevenson, that can be a liability, but Terrell Smith is excellent hip-to-hip. And you're going to be able to blitz a lot more, and we have great blitzers like I just talked about. But you would have to absolutely revamp this defensive line. The defensive line is the biggest liability on this team. It is the biggest weakness on the Bears. A lot of fans still don't want to acknowledge that, especially in a draft where you're going to have maybe one or two offensive linemen drafted in the first round, and not many that are NFL blue chip. None blue chip offensive linemen in this draft. And you've got 5 to 10 blue chippers, and you've got 15 defensive linemen worthy of being drafted in the first round of this draft. And people are still saying, we need to go offensive line first 3 picks. Understand the draft. Understand your team's needs. This is where the Bears are. Yes, I am saying we go defensive line first 2 picks 100%. We do not have 3 defensive line quality players on the Chicago Bears. We have 2. We have 2 right now that are worthy of being on a team. Andrew Billings would maybe be a backup on teams. Maybe. I'm saying maybe. Now, a lot of fans don't want to hear that because they're high on Big Bill. I like Big Bill. I think he's good enough to be a backup on the Bears. He's injured right now, so it doesn't really matter. Austin Booker not really working out so far, but we knew he was developmental. We knew he was not a year one hit. I hoped he would develop quickly. He needs to add 15 pounds and get some more hand technique, get some more vision for the field because he lets a lot of things slide. But there's a good opportunity for the Bears this offseason to be able to improve on that. All right, sorry, I'm minuscule down here. I'm little again, but the big point of these videos is the stats. And sorry, I just went on like a 5-minute rampage to start the video out. But it's my thoughts, my free talk, I guess. But here's the run defense. We're just going to focus on the defensive line for this video. Here's the run defense, then we'll do the pass defense. So your run defense, this is all jumbled. I realize this is a big jumbled mess. Over here in this section is week 13, okay? Over here is the 24 season. And this is going to be top 20% of your defensive linemen, okay? So even though I've got some linebackers in here for the Bears to show how the linebackers have done against the run, this is for linemen. So your run defense, your top 20% are going to be above 68.9. Now, this is of qualified linemen, 266 linemen with 50-plus run snaps. Obviously, only 22 run snaps there for Dominique Robinson. He hasn't got much of a shot, which is, to me, it's questionable by this Bears staff. Why? Like, you insisted on keeping Dominique Robinson when I said it's time for this experiment to be over with, go away. And then the 22 snaps he gets, he's the best on the team. One of the best tackling grades, only behind TJ Edwards, the best line tackling grade, and the best run defense grade in 22 snaps. That's the problem. Very limited. Now, I've said the rest of this season needs to be focused on trying players out, developing players that need to be developed. We're 4-8. We are not making the playoffs. There's a couple things that need to happen. You need to build cohesion. You need to build for the future with young players, especially like Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze. But then some of these players that are on the bubble too. Dominique Robinson, in the 1-2 games he got to play in, and he's been a healthy scratch for most other games, one of the best run defenders we've had. Limited snap sample. And it's not indicative of his entire career because he's been really more down here for most of his career with the Bears. And that's why I've said, let's cut him. Let's get rid of him. But then you've got him playing decent in the 2 games that he got to play in. To me, this is an absolute must. You have to play him to see if you continue on with him next year and then beyond his contract after that. Are we signing into minimum contracts? What are we doing? Because he revamped his body. He's working it. 77.2 to me is worth giving him some more reps, at least in certain situations. Montez Sweat, the best run defender on the team, 68.8, and he's one of the best pass rushers as well. So this year, you see Montez Sweat's numbers down. You see everyone talking about Montez Sweat being down, and some of them are blaming him. This is a direct result of not having a supportive cast. He doesn't have anybody to help him. So there's the Montez Sweat effect. There's also the opposite of it. Without Montez Sweat, we would be 32nd out of 32nd in the league in run defense and pass rush. We would be the worst defensive line in the league. And we're already almost there as the worst defensive line in the league. And then we'll skip back the linebackers here, but DeMarcus Walker has had a surprisingly good year. Is he starter quality? No, but we've got him starting. So he's been at 63.7. So for run defense, 68.9 is top 20. You can see here the little line. 59 is the average. So right here is your average, guys. And above that, I mean, these guys are barely above average for run defense. DeMarcus Walker, Gervon Dexter, Byron Cowart. I like Gervon Dexter. 100% like him. I especially like this. He doesn't miss tackle opportunities. Top 20% of the defensive linemen in the league are 3.7% missed tackles or below. Well, he's the only one in this range. Look at how bad it is for, and Montez Sweat. Sorry, Montez Sweat, 0 missed tackle percentage. Look at everybody else. You got DeMarcus Walker, 14.3. Byron Cowart, 18.8. Tremaine Edmonds, 14.6. That's defensive. That's a linebacker. Sorry, that doesn't equate in as much. Jacob Martin, 12.5. 11.8. 12.5. One of the biggest glaring weaknesses of Andrew Billings is his run defense. Zach Pickens, 20.0. Austin Booker, 20.0. Chris Williams, 8.3. That's not good. This is the biggest reason teams run down our throat. Guys don't wrap up, and they don't stop them at the initial point of contact. Our yak against us, yards after contact, is one of the very worst in the National Football League. And you can see that evident here by the missed tackle percentage and our tackling grades. These tackling grades are absolutely pitiful. Pitiful. So Montez Sweat, like I said, we've got one guy. And then Gervon Dexter, If you add in his pass rush, he's there too, but his missed tackling is good. But they're double teaming him, they're double teaming Montez Sweat, and then there's no hope for us. So I'll leave some of this. You guys can see this. The tackling grade should be above 65 or 65.9 to be your top guys in the lead on the defensive line. So Montez Sweat is there, but nobody else is even close to that. And then your average 52.7, nobody's close. So the run defense is a huge problem for the Bears. I hope this video helps some people realize what I'm talking about when I talk about the draft, having to go defensive tackle number 1 in this draft. That's what we have to do this next year. That or short up in free agency, but there's not a ton of options there. This is the class for defensive tackle. This is the class for defensive end. This is what we've talked last year. You had some good quarterbacks. You had really good wide receivers. You had some good offensive linemen. This year, it's going to be your defensive line, defensive tackles, defensive end. That's what this draft class is, 100%. This is that class. Next year, there's some great quarterbacks again, some good wide receivers, some good offensive linemen. So it's going to cycle around. And it's not like we can't pick up some good competitive offensive guards, offensive linemen in the second, third, fourth round. In fact, that's probably where your best ones will go. It's rare to see a center or a guard go in the first round. And this year's draft class, you're not going to see that. You're not going to see them go in the first round. You're going to see teams going for these defensive linemen. All right, and as we move into the pass rush, all things are not equal. I have to say that because when we're looking at things like PRP and win rate, all things are equal because that's an average number. But totals and sacks, those are going to be higher for guys with higher pass rush opportunities, 314, 327. Those opportunities should be higher for those guys. Your pass rush grade would be good. So here's the pass rush, 275 players in the NFL with 75 pass rush opportunities or more. So that's who we're gauging this top 20% on. Your top 20% are going to have grades higher than 70.4. Well, Jacob Martin has only had 65, and he's another one of those players just getting back, getting healthy. The run is a little suspect, but it's better than most years for him. But we need to see what we have in Jacob Martin the rest of the year because he has looked pretty good. In only 62 pass rush opportunities, he's had 13 total pressures. That is absolutely phenomenal. That is really, really good. So we need to see what we have in Jacob Martin. Same thing in Dominic Robinson. As I said, only 16 pass rush opportunities, 2 pressures. Is this a fluke? Is it not having enough sample size? Probably. Absolutely. But he's got a win rate of 20.0 and a PRP of 6.7. That is worth me saying, why are we benching this kid that we kept? We hung on to. We decided we were going to keep him instead of cutting him last season when his numbers were so atrocious and abysmal. Now we've kept him, and we have him as a healthy scratch every week. It boggles my brain. It really does. So the average of these guys, these 275 players, is 62.3. You can see we have a lot of guys that are above the average for the pass rush. But your top 20%, 70.4. Now, we don't even have Jervon Dexter in the top 20%, Montez Sweat. They're not elite. So we've got a lot of average guys when it comes to the pass rush. So in summation, teams can run down our throat and break tackles because our guys can't tackle, and then we're not quite getting there. We're not having elite pressure on these guys. Our pressure rates are not phenomenal. So top 20% in the league, you'd have over 32 pressures. You've got Montez Sweat there and Jervon Dexter there, but nobody else really there. Sacks, 5+, you got Montez Sweat, Jervon Dexter, but nobody else. And these numbers need to be more balanced. You got to have guys rotating in and really hitting it hard. Pass rush, this is PRP. That's PFF's pass rush. How many times they get in on any given play. So 7.6 is going to be your top 20%. You got Jacob Martin in limited sample size doing really well. You got Montez Sweat in the top 20%. But then Jervon Dexter below. I mean, everyone below. Linebackers aren't included in this. This is for linemen. And then win rate, 12.9. Big Bill had a good win rate. That was good for him. Jacob Martin in limited opportunities. So you need to see Jacob Martin, Dominic Robinson. We need to see some more of them before the end of the year. Montez Sweat, really good on his win rate. DeMarcus Walker, right up there, close. But then everybody else, it's really down. We don't get enough pressure on opposing teams, especially running the Tampa 2. This is what I was talking about with the Tampa 2. So let me go back here. So this is Overall, let me go here for our run defense tackling. Overall, all grades. Let me move me to the top here. Okay, so here's all grades. Here's where you see the run defense and the tackling. Look at how little green there is. So I wanted to bring up all grades here. Here's your all defensive grades: total defensive, run defensive grade, tackling grade, pass rush grade. We're not worried about the coverage grade right here for the linebackers probably. See how low that is for him, for Tremaine Edmonds. Those are low coverage grades. The Tampa 2 is not working because we're not getting pressure. Then these guys don't have good coverage. We're not getting enough ball tips. We're not getting enough mistakes by the other teams because we're not getting pressure on them. So here's your pass rush grades. Andrew Billings has a good grade. Jacob Martin, but limited reps, limited opportunities here. When you look at this in here, this is the big problem. We need run defenders. We need guys who can tackle and stop the run. T.J. Edwards is a linebacker. Take that one out of there. Montez Sweat, when you look across the board, that looks good. You want to see all that green. All that green looks really good. You can't see anybody else like that other than limited sample size. So these limited sample size need to get more reps, and I don't have the answer as to why. Unless they say, okay, these limited sample size, we're in a bubble, they're in a vacuum, and they don't equate to what this is. So they're looking at Dominique Robinson like he's Darrell Taylor. I mean, that's what they're doing, or Chris Williams, or Zach Pickens. But Zach Pickens down here, he should be on the last leg of this contract. That was a bad pick by Ryan Poles. It's one of the black eyes, in my opinion, on his tenure here as the GM. Austin Booker, I can give a pass here because this is developmental. He's a rookie who was undersized, who everyone said should have stayed in college one more year, but the Bears got him as a fifth round pick that we can develop and add some weight, get some technique, and he's going to be okay. In my opinion, he'll be fine. He's going to develop. Whether he'll become Jacob Martin or whether he'll become Montez Sweat is up to him, but he's developmental, so I'm okay with that. But inside here is the big issue for the Bears, so hopefully that will start helping some people realize the biggest needs this team have aren't on the offensive line. I'm not saying we don't address the offensive line at all, because the offensive line, more than anything, needs to have some improvements, needs to have some depth. We need 2 or 3 more starters. You look across the board, I'm good with Braxton Jones starting next year. He needs some competition and some depth to have iron sharpen iron. If he goes out, someone comes in, and that's not Karan Amagachi right now. I'd like to draft someone in the 2nd, 3rd round. That would be great to bring in to compete with him, maybe take over his job when his contract runs out next year, or maybe win the job over from him next year. If Tevin Jenkins doesn't resign, we got a huge issue at guard. We got 2 guards needed. Matt Pryor is not it at guard. Center Coleman Shelton, I'm fine re-signing him to draft some other guys and hit the center position in a couple years, next year, through the draft, whatever. But Coleman Shelton right now is a top 10 center in the league. Darnell Wright, run blocking, absolutely stellar. Pass blocking needs a little bit more refinement, but he's still only in year 2, so I'm good. So if I'm picking right now, I want Braxton Jones with some more competition and iron sharpening iron. Coleman Shelton with some more competition, iron sharpening iron. Darnell Wright staying, and Tevin Jenkins re-signing, but on a team-friendly contract, and then drafting really high guard to be able to compete with him. Re-signing Matt Pryor, but not as a starter. I don't think Matt Pryor is a starter. So that detracted from the defensive line, but right now we've got next year who I'm comfortable with as starters on our defensive line to get pressure would be Montez Sweat and Gervon Dexter. That's it. That is it on this defensive line. And I don't even like half of them as backups. I want to see what we've got in Darrell Taylor, Jacob Martin, Dominique Robinson the rest of the year. But Zach Pickens' experiment to me is done. Byron Cowart, gone. Like, these guys, they're not NFL caliber. That's not what we, and then especially if we bring in Mike Vrabel, say we bring in Mike Vrabel on his man-to-man type of defense. You need more pressure. You need pressure in the Tampa 2. It doesn't matter. Up front, you have to have pressure on both sides of the ball. We've got to get our defensive ends, our defensive interior in there causing disruption. It's so imperative for a team to be successful. Because right now, this Tampa 2 is not working. This zone is not working. And that's one of the reasons they're okay saying, Eberflus, you're gone. Your poor decision-making is what tipped it over the edge. Your situational awareness tipped it over the edge. But the reality is everything about this defense, we've got guys that are talented. Jalen Johnson, Tremaine Edmonds, T.J. Edwards, Jack Sanborn even, that are not productive as to their talent should be. They should be higher productivity than their talent in this year's defense. Montez Sweat on the defensive line, Gervon Dexter even. Like, these guys are are doing well in some games, but it's not being play called up to be able to give the most out of them. It's outdated. He's not adapting with the times, and he's not making proper calls at the end of games. Therefore, he had to go. He had to go. So this is where we are now. We do need a change on defense. I am very intrigued in this game coming up and in future games how Eric Washington is going to play call this defensive line and the defensive schemes overall. Eberflus is gone. He's got a big opportunity on defense here now, too, to start disrupting some things. Start experimenting with some things up front. Start stunting. Start blitzing, because we aren't blitzing. We're one of the worst blitzing teams in the league, and we've got to if we want to generate pressure, especially with our lack of talent on the defensive line. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm really intrigued. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments, what questions you have about defense or defensive schemes. So to go back to the original question, a lot of you guys have had about a head coach, who you'd want, and who you think I would want. Right now, my choice, as it's been brought up more and more, I would like Mike Vrabel. If there's a way to keep Thomas Brown on board as the offensive coordinator, this would be my ideal setting right now. Mike Vrabel running the defense and the team. He's got experience. And Thomas Brown as the offensive coordinator staying on. That would be my preference. Let me know what you guys think, though. And until next time, bear down.